I'm Herb Stevenson.
I'm Denny Pavan.
And welcome to Natural Passages, Revealing the Unmarked Doors of Life. And we're going to have a conversation on forgiveness today.
Forgiveness. And how does that work in the world of, hate versus love, and people who do wrong things to other people, or something offends someone? Where does that fit into our life and growth?
Well, forgiveness is, the way I look at it, it's a moment frozen in time. And as long as it's frozen in time and it impacts me and how I choose to live or how I make meaning, is that angst will pretty much dictate the quality of my life. I'll give you an example. What I just used a reference of the people in India. Instead of focusing on squalor, they focus on the joy of life. So forgiveness is, as I said, I think a little earlier, I don't believe in forgive and forget. It doesn't work that well. The question is, how do I, and I'm more interested in not forgiving the other person, but how do I move the energy inside me that is dictating how I'm moving forward since that moment. So people who have been traumatized end up being a victim the rest of their life unless they can find a way to shift that frozen moment in time to simply a memory that happened, but is not who I am. And the unfortunate part about a lot of issues that happen to us is, I'm not denying the quality and the depth and the pain of it, whether it be betrayal or violence or anything else. But there has to come a point where you shift that frozen moment in time and are able to release, because it's the emotions that carry over and create all of our agony and support us, help survive actually, because it froze it, so it didn't destroy us. And so the impact, when we talk about forgiveness, for me, is the real issue is, how do I stay fully present to this moment without becoming the trauma that happened then? So the way I refer to it is to melt a time crystal. If I'm fully present, I can bring the past to this moment. The emotions will dissolve, and I will begin to free myself. But internally, psychologically, we have this experience that when we touch something and happened to us, is I lose my moment now, and I am there. And it's just like what we talk about, people go into a completely reliving, an instant replay of the exact moment as if it was happening right now. And that is the piece I'm interested in, is if I can stay here and allow that to come forward, I begin the healing process. So that frozen moment dissolves, the emotions begin to dissolve. I'm not carrying the anguish anymore. I'm carrying the wisdom of what happened to me. And I'm carrying it in a way that enables me to understand what has influenced me, but is not me. And so it's a completely different way of looking at forgiveness, because the problem with when we have, whether you look at it forgiveness or you look at the way I do, which is it's purely energy, is the person who is unwilling to forgive carries that resentment the rest of their life, affecting everything they do. So I'm not going to go moral and say you have to forgive somebody, but you do have the capacity to thaw that frozen moment in time. And it didn't have anything to do with what that person did to you, because if you want to get religious, vengeance is mine, saith the Lord, so let the Lord do it. But heal yourself.
When you mentioned going back in time, do we mentally transport ourselves to this moment? Like we look at something negative in the past that happened to us that creates this angst in our own,
It's just like PTSD. ask anybody who's been in a war, the second it kicks, they are there.
That I can understand. Yeah.
Okay, well, it's no different than any violent trauma. Could be a car wreck, could be, sexual violence, anything that creates a frozen moment in time, that every time you touch it, you're there. You're as if you haven't left Afghanistan or Iran, Vietnam, take your pick.
Right. Or if you had a childhood moment where your parents had a violent
Sure.
fight or something.
Something you witnessed violence.
Right.
All of those things. And so if the moment's frozen, anytime we do something that reminds us of it, where our memory takes us right as if we're right in the middle of it. And that's why it's so difficult to deal with trauma. So when I work with people, one of the key things to keep people present is make them keep eye contact. And I keep saying, stay present, here, now. You've already been there 10,000 times. How many times do you have to go back? And they suddenly have a shift to realize they get to control it. They have the courage to control it. And it begins to bring the process here to realize I am safe in this moment, and that was years ago. And it shifts them.
So from this moment on, then you progress.
You progress. You now have a memory that informs you how you became who you are, but it is not who you are.
Yeah, because to go back to the saying of we are the product of our environment, as we, depending on whether you grow up in a certain city or the countryside, you take on a certain persona as well. As far as someone who grows up in rural West Virginia versus someone who grows up in inner city Cleveland, the environment creates some of this.
Sure. Well, it's trauma.
Yeah, trauma.
I mean, frozen moments in time, experiences that you've not been able to process. And we know this. I mean, I'm trained in Gestalt as well, and Gestalt basically calls that an unfinished experience. And it's there waiting to be healed. The reason an apology works, I may know that you have been truly offended. I don't experience it that way, but I still provide an apology to you by saying, this happened. I saw the anguish it created for you. That's not my experience, but I do apologize, because if I did offend you and harm you in any way, I do regret that, because I'm doing it directly in this moment. That person has the potential to begin a healing process of releasing their resentment, because there was an overture in this present time to heal it. That's why apologies, for those who watched the podcast, the prior one on apologies, this will sound like a refresher, but apologies work if they're sincere and we make connection. If I don't make the connection, apology will have no effect.
You mentioned energy. We are energy as spiritual souls, or we're a ball of energy, or how do you explain that?
Well, it's interesting, because science is caught up, and Einstein has brought it out in some of his things, but it doesn't matter what the physical matter is, taken down to the lowest existing element, is pure energy. No distinguishable feature between you, me, a rock, a tree. It is just pure energy. Now, some people say, well, what is that? Well, maybe it's some tradition called life force. God. He creates a blueprint, and boom, here we are, and that's a rock and that's a tree. But the real issue for us is when I say presence, and I want to tie that to energy, I think this will support you a little bit. What I intend, or I focus on, directs my energy, whether we want to say our conscious awareness. And so that's like when I said, if you want to go fast, go slow. You stopped and saw the cardinal. From the story you told in our last podcast, that had an energetic exchange between you. You felt something. It's a felt sense, and it really got your attention. Your way of thinking about it is to think about it. I wonder what that means. Or it could be, isn't that interesting? We're moving to winter, and here's this cardinal who keeps trying to get my attention. All of those are types of energy.
True, very true. There's positive energy and negative energy.
Sure, and part of it goes down to what's your intention. If your intention is to do harm, it's negative energy.
And the negative energy sometimes creates in people, however they encounter a negative energy, this angst of anger that
leads to resentment.
It's resentment.
Sure, it leads to resentment. So if I focus my energy on anger and I build a story about what you did to me, then I build a big pocket full of resentment, and I begin to see the world through resentment.
How do people, whether they, I guess I look at it as some people look at the glass half full, others look at it half empty. That's the same thing, isn't it? But how do you recognize in yourself that you have this negative energy that you want to try to, eliminate?
So when I work with people, a lot of times I'll use the half full and half empty, but I go a little bit further so they can understand themselves, their intention that creates it. So if I only see the glass as half empty, I point out to them is if you see it as only half empty, you probably also notice there's a crack in the bottom and it's dripping on your hardwood floor and it's now warped, and you want to know who the son of a bitch was that broke your glass. And they go, yes. And I said, that's how you focus your attention, and you go, because you see it only as half empty, so you expect the worst. The person sees it half full, and we often say, well, they're Pollyannas, they only see the positive. Well, that's not necessarily the issue. What if they're just seeing that life isn't necessarily just good or bad? What if looking at a cardinal and taking a moment, it's just a moment.
It's that moment in time. Is there, I'm looking at it from a perspective too of, is there something you can do for yourself to, kind of self-involve your thoughts where it's almost like meditation? You take that time to just settle down, take a deep breath, and think about absolutely nothing in a way except for where you are right now.
Well, if a person has had something that they're struggling with, forgiveness, sitting quietly 5 minutes a day for 30 days with the intention of, what do I need to understand about what happened to me so that I can let go of it? That opens it up because I'm staying fully present to myself. Another way of saying it is what prevents me from forgiving this person? And at first the story and the anger and resentment comes out and say, no. What? And you go 30 days, and suddenly you get an insight it could be about anything. It may be that I'm afraid if I give up my resentment because they might do it again. I mean, it can be that simple. And so when you say reflective, the thing that I recommend to everybody I work with is I want you to at least find 5 minutes a day to meditate. And the number of people who struggle to do 1 minute is pretty outrageous. But that's what we've lost, our capacity to reflect and contemplate and just be with ourselves. And the more we do it, suddenly we start seeing, life's pretty good because we actually are present.
So in a way, too, there's whether you're in a city or the country, as we were mentioning earlier, though, taking a moment to just see your surroundings that moment and kind of taking a little bit more of it all in, whether it's the sky, the trees, a street light, traffic going by, just saying, okay, here I am, this is what's happening, and it's not all bad.
Well, that's the part of reflection and shifting our whole awareness from I got to get up and do something to actually participating in life in a present moment. So I'll give you an example. Every day I get up and I wait to see the sky in an absolute perfect way, and I take a picture. I don't rush it. I don't do a picture. I wait for the picture to tell me, push the button. I have thousands of absolutely magnificent photographs of the skies and all sorts of things. But it's allowing nature to touch you like your cardinal. You start that as a daily practice, your life changes. So the same thing in bringing us back to forgiveness is the idea of forgiveness is we think that we have to forgive somebody. I don't agree with that. It may have been a purely heinous crime, but it doesn't mean you can't heal yourself and free yourself from what they did so that you're not carrying the baggage that they put upon you. And that's a whole different orientation, because there's no moral aspect to this. What I'm saying is can you get to the point where it is only a memory that informs you of experiences you've had in your life? It has shaped you, but it clearly is not who you are, so that you can see the grandeur of the rest of who you are. I don't know anybody one way or another hasn't been traumatized.
Well, I agree. I was just thinking when you're talking about forgiveness on certain traumatic events that some there are levels that are so intense that it's very, very hard to forgive, and not to mention the things that are going every day in our news, but someone's daughter or son is abducted or killed, and
Sure.
It's totally violent. How do you forgive someone like that?
I agree.
Do you work with people to try to help people overcome these real obstacles in their life?
Well, I try to support them of how can we shift it from a place of pure angst and anguish. And for some people, they may not be able to. I mean, it's burned their soul, so to speak. But I don't necessarily work with the idea of, because there are those who have miraculous moments of forgiveness. There was just one on television recently in 60 Minutes where an individual caused the death of a family's son, and they forgave him, and they asked him why, and he says, because we don't want to carry the baggage the rest of our lives. We forgive him because we realize he was human, he made a mistake, however he deals with that, that's him. But for us, we want to choose the memory and the blessing of life over resentment. That's different.
Yes. When is there a certain transition that happens within yourself if you come across that moment where this forgiveness is now created in your own, say, aura, or this forgiveness has created a feeling that's like you've washed through this negativeness, and all of a sudden you feel energized. True. In a way.
True. That generally is what happens when we bring something from a time crystal from the past and we bring it to the present, and it dissolves. Common experience is I feel more who I am. I have a lot of energy. My eyes feel clearer. There's a lot of positive things. Anything frozen in the past that haunts our present is darkening us. We can't see. Somewhere we've kind of been going on for a while here, so I think what we need to do is close this little section on forgiveness. So I thank you for your time and energy.
Thank you. Well, perhaps we can talk again soon. There's so many ways to view our world.
That's true. So
thank you, Herb.
Thank you. Appreciate it, and we hope to see you at our next Natural Passages.